The LG Procast, the podcast, is intended for informational and entertainment purposes only. The views or opinions expressed by the podcast hosts and guests do not necessarily reflect the official position of LG. For the latest and most accurate information about LG products, please consult relevant product manuals and related documentation. The information provided in this podcast episode is for informational purposes only and does not constitute professional advice. While we strive to provide accurate and up-to-date information, we make no representation or warranties of any kind, express or implied, about the completeness, accuracy, reliability, or suitability of the information for any specific application in the following discussion. LG and those posting or otherwise providing information, content, or material are not responsible or liable for any consequences relating directly or indirectly to any action or inaction you take based on the information, content, or other material on the podcast.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another LG Procast. I'm your co-host, Terry and Phillip.
And I'm Philip Craigbaum. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Today we've got Andrew Greaves from NAVAC Tools on here with us. Andrew, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Philip. Hey, Terry. Glad to be here.
Yeah. If you want to kick it off, just tell us a quick little bit about you, your history, NAVAC and the NAVAC history, where they came from, where they're going, and
Yeah. Okay. Yes, I'm Andrew Greaves. I'm the director of user experience at NAVAC. You know, titles are just words. It envelops the training departments, and I really try to consider my role the contractor perspective and making sure that NAVAC is making decisions that really keep them at the forefront. That's my role at NAVAC. Prior to that, I've been there about be coming up on 7 years in a few months. Prior to that, I was a commercial industrial HVAC mechanic. Prior to HVAC, I was in the Marines right out of high school. So it's been a little while. It's been a little while in the trade, and it treated me very well. And again, I got out of the truck in 2019. So it's been a big change. It's been a great ride. I've learned a ton. There are so many other perspectives besides just the technician. So that was kind of a humbling thing in the beginning, going around and being able to observe that. So it's been a great time.
Anyway, I see a theme or hear a theme and feel a theme, Philip, on the show. We have a lot of former military guests. And so first and foremost, we always like to say thank you for your service to our country. We certainly respect that. And what we see and hear and feel from you guys is a passion, a dedication, and a commitment to doing things correct. All right. So be that military or the way your parents raised you, doesn't really matter. It's comforting. And I can tell you, as a personal user of NAVAC products, I am a fan. I have been a fan since I think we had a little off camera discussion. I've been a fan since the first time I saw the product, and that would have been 2018. And I've owned that lithium powered flaring tool that your president gave me at the AHR show in 2018, and I'm still using it today with the same batteries. So this has been amazing.
You probably haven't charged it either.
I can only think I've charged it like 2 or 3 times, and people go, "Well, of course you never use it." Well, anybody that knows me knows I use it.
That's incredible. That's the first gen. Yeah. The NEF6LI. So yeah, that's right before it was replaced by, the current model that's still available today. But that original, a lot of people still really liked it.
Yeah. I keep telling guys, it's going to take me longer to put the collet or the die into the tool than it is to make the flare, but you're still going to be looking through your 5-gallon bucket for your flaring tool, and that couldn't be finished.
oh yeah.
The way I always looked at that particular tool is if contractors see that and their first reaction is, that's a gimmick, or that is ridiculous, just learn how to flare, or this or that. Usually, like, what I would say immediately is, you're right. Then if that's your reaction immediately, that is a luxury for you then. Like, because if you don't immediately see the value to that, then you're not putting in ductless equipment often enough to justify a tool like that. But the people that are putting that equipment in and day out, it doesn't take much of a sell outside of seeing it demonstrated when they see how repeatable and essentially perfect, as close to perfect as we can do.
Yeah, I agree.
I have the same one Terry does, the previous generation, and it's a lifesaver. And you start thinking about ductless. If you're putting in one mini split, that's 4 flares. But just, I was on a job or we were shooting some video actually, and I was using a hand flaring tool, and it's just so cumbersome. And granted, I don't do it every day, and there's a lot of skill that goes into it, but I can pick up that battery flare tool from NAVAC and just, it's so easy. It's easy to make a good flare, and on top of it, the time saver. I'm not saying you'll make a better flare with it, but it makes a great flare.
Well, it's a great flare, and I'll take a great flare that's consistent. That's what the tool does. It's consistency that you can't replicate by hand. Even when people do a great flare to the naked eye, very often it still doesn't actually pass our gauge. The small flat aluminum bar that can check these flares for a precise diameter. It's a razor's edge for it to a margin, right? So if it's slightly over flared, it's not going to pass through. If it's at all under flared, it's not going to catch this little machined lip on the inside of that hole. So, yeah.
Yeah. So if you guys aren't familiar with what he's talking about, after you make a flare, you should take a flare gauge and ensure that it's actually the right size. And so it's got a hole for each size flare, and the flare should go into the hole but not pass through it. It's got a little ridge in there. If it passes through, it's too small. If it won't go in the hole, it's too large. And that's one of those steps to making a quality flare that's going to help to achieve a quality installation and no leaks and all those things. And NAVAC makes those gauges as well.
Yeah, we obviously, Philip and I and some of our peers, we do a lot of educational pieces around the country, and without question, the leaking flare is the number one callback item, number one service related item. Number two, of course, is miswiring 4 wires. And that leaking flare is detrimental to, and has been the black eye of this technology. Right? It's just, and there's no call or need for it when there are tools that can make that a much better experience.
To the point where now they're brazing in, as often as they can, they'll braze in joints. I was on a job in North Carolina. I went out and met one of the TSAs out at a job, and they couldn't figure out what was going on. And we finally ripped up the line set insulation, found that they brazed the indoor unit in, and in the process, they completely clogged that little 1/4-inch liquid line. And shockingly, the system wasn't working when you have a complete blockage in the line set.
Right. So not only going against the manufacturer's specs on that install, but also not even doing proper practice if you're gonna braze, right? So if they, clearly they weren't using nitrogen, if they were able to clog a 1/4-inch line, that's still a significant amount to clog up.
Yeah.
It must have been a real dirty brazing job. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a mess. Yeah. Called the contractor and said, "We found your problem, come fix it." And we left.
Come fix it. Right. So Andrew, tell us, you make so many more things now than just a battery operated flaring tool. Give us a little, I don't want you to go through your whole product line. What are some highlights now of that NAVAC product line? What do you see that's, techs across the country just got to have, or just need to have?
Well, I'll if I kind of stick in the ductless world for a minute, it's not a 2025 release, but the one of the most unique things I think we've been able to do was take the idea of and by the way, I take a little bit of credit for this. I really pushed this idea early on, and you know what? It's on the shelf now. And that's actually what's been fun, by the way, of being at the ground level of a small manufacturer. I've been able to have a lot of influence, right? Where normally a big company, you'd be so compartmentalized, you'd never, your ideas would never be heard. But anyway, for years and years and years, manufacturers have come out with what they call their mini split install kit. It's got, just a regular, a torque wrench with 100 different flare wrench heads, loosen the bottom. I wanted us to be able to have what we would call, consider the Cadillac of install kits for ductless equipment. So the NKS2 is our ductless installation kit, which is in more of a duffel style, because it's, meant to accommodate and comes with our digital torque wrench and as well as the battery operated flaring tool. So it's going to come with those two right off the bat, as well as core tools, tubing cutters, flare gauges, etc. So all of the and the full set of hex keys, large, so you can actually get the right amount of torque on it. So really wanted to try to take it to the next level and show that we understand what those contractors are actually having to do out there. That's why you start with a design build, and then the as built is usually so different.
Right. So I want to interject something here. So 30-ish, 25 years ago in my wholesale career, beginning of the ductless world for wholesalers, realizing the importance of having that kit that you spoke of, like you, when I got it, I'm like, the stuff in here I don't need. So we went and sourced, and I put together a kit, gave it a part number. And this is for you distributor partners listening. I put together a part number for that kit in our operating system of that wholesaler, national wholesaler. And we not rented, is the wrong word. We put that on an invoice for ductless install, one ductless install kit -1 part number. And it had a value, $750, whatever the number was. We sent that kit to the job with our inverter driven systems. And if they brought it back in good order, we'd write a credit. If they didn't bring it back, they bought it, right? They signed for it. And we sold kits because guys got out on the job and realized the value of it. And we had kits come back. Over the course of time, Andrew, we started doing what you said. We started adding better products to put in that kit, right? So the deal. So one of the questions when you said, Allen hex keys or wrenches, wherever, are they ball tipped on the end or are they just straight?
Yes, they're ball ended.
Right. That's the part that was missing. People had T-handle hex wrench and you can't get that in. So having the ball allows switch. So that's the kind of stuff. Listen, if you're watching this or listening to this, that's somebody that's been in the field and made a decision to put the right product in the back. Okay. Because that's what makes your life better and easier as a technician or as an installing contractor.
Absolutely. And the, speaking of the core tools too, it has the ductless contractor in mind. Our, valve core removal tool is 5/16 and 1/4 inch on the same tool. You just need to pull off the adapter on top to get to the 1/4 inch if you need it. So what we've done is basically save the contractor half in the investment of typically needing to buy 2 1/4 inch, 2 5/16, to be prepared for every situation. We allow, basically enable the person to have 2 and get the same amount of work done. Core tools, important, obviously, because we're wanting to take those out. Really, if we're doing any kind of process of removing refrigerant or evacuating the equipment. So not only do we have all the hardware to go in between the equipment and the vacuum pump, but the pumps itself obviously are our bread and butter, right? So vacuum pumps, recovery machines, we're the biggest manufacturer of vacuum pumps in the world, by the way, HVAC vacuum pumps. So I'd say it's upwards of 70% of the imported pumps into the US that are not NAVAC were made by NAVAC. Wow. So now we're not the only one with this available now, but we did pioneer The battery operated vacuum pump for HVAC applications, there had been a single stage pump on the market prior, but it wasn't for HVAC. Single stage is just simply inadequate. However, 2025, we did release a third pump to our battery break-free series of vacuum pumps, and we've gotten up to 6 CFM now. So we started with 2, 4, and now 6 CFM, battery operated. This really plays well to the mini split world. I think being able to have a 2, I don't think you need 6 for a mini split. You really don't. 2 and 4 more than adequate. The 2, provided it was a clean install, I mean, you're not going to have any problems doing that. If you follow all the other things that are actually more important, which is using the right size hoses, removing the restrictions, removing the manifold completely from that equation, and just going direct equipment to the pump, 2 CFM, no problem all day. If you leave those Schrader cores in and you got your big 12 CFM pump, what you really have is a big, heavy, expensive 1 to 2, 1.5 CFM pump. Probably you've derated it to almost nothing by basically choking it and not enabling it to do what it's manufactured to do. And when you level the playing field with those hoses, that's why all of a sudden a 2 CFM outperforms an 8, 10, 12 CFM with the wrong hoses. I do the demonstration regularly showing our 2 CFM just smoking our industrial 12 because one's using the right hoses, one isn't.
Yeah, I've done the same in training classes. I have the 2 CFM battery one. I call it my little baby vacuum pump. And, guys are just amazed when you start talking about real time, 2 minutes, 4 minutes in small systems, but residentially, if you're hooking that up with a 1/2-inch vacuum hose, which I believe is rated for about 4 CFM, if I'm remembering right, it's a great matchup. So a 2 or a 4 is pretty sufficient for any residential tech. I had another tool manufacturer send me an 8 CFM super expensive pump probably 5 years ago. And I think 2 months ago, I gave it away to a friend of mine that does commercial work, and I never even plugged it in. I'm like, I never asked for it, but I never needed it. I don't do commercial work. I don't need 6 or 8 CFM. Anything in the residential world, you're fine.
You really don't. And I usually will tell people, if you already own, most people own 6 to 8, right?
Yeah.
That's pretty much the majority of vacuum pump sales fall in that.
It's been oversold though.
Oversold due to education, lack thereof. And these pumps, if they already own one, I would typically point them towards that too, because now they can have that for those specific applications where they just want to run out. Maybe there's not power on the job site yet. It's just a mini split. They don't need to drag all that other stuff out. If they don't have a vacuum pump and they're looking to just get a vacuum pump, if they were insistent on a battery pump, I would push them towards the 4, because if it's going to be their only pump, it's going to be a lot harder if they stick with the 2 for service work. It's great for installs of clean systems, but there's no gas ballast. And it's a very small pump, right? It fits in the palm of your hand. There's not much space for oil. There's not a whole lot of volume for oil in that crankcase. Right. So one, it gets compromised very easily. It doesn't take much for moisture to corrupt that oil, and there's no way to manage it or mitigate it with the ballast. So you're really going to be doing tons of oil changes if you bring that little pump on some old system that's really wet, right? So the 4 keeps all the advantage of the battery operated pump. The 2, however, it does have the inclusion of that ballast and a larger crankcase.
It's good to know.
Good stuff.
So I know guys are going to ask, is it specific to NAVAC batteries, or do they have adapters where they can run different brands? So
we have our own platform. We have an 18-volt platform that we've used since the beginning for our battery operated pumps. Those are 18-volt, 5 and 9 amp hour. to drive those three pump models. However, we do have an adapter as of 2025 to adapt to DeWalt.
Cool.
Okay, cool.
Others are available. You just got to go to Amazon for them. We don't make it.
Gotcha.
Okay. So guys, they're out there, right? So if you like the red and black tools, or you like the yellow ones, or you like whatever, you can get some adapters where if you got, 20 batteries already on your truck of that brand. So, but I've been using yours, and like I said, I don't do a lot of installs anymore, but that battery gets relatively great life. So, it's been a great tool. So what else are you guys getting into? We've talked about flaring tools and vacuum pumps, but I know you got and torque wrenches. What other tools do you guys have specific that we would use in the inverter world? And then even beyond that, I know I was at the HVAC symposium last summer, and you guys were there and gave every participant a really nice set of gauges just for showing up, which I thought was really, really cool. So those came in the mail a couple of months ago. I got to play around with those, but so just guys that aren't super familiar with NAVAC, while we got you, let's let you kind of brag about what you got.
Yeah. So, well, one, a big direction that we're heading into this year is the connected tool space, right? So that's all the probes, the wireless probes, integrated into a native app, my NAVAC app on iOS and Android. And now also in a new integration into the MeasureQuick software. So it's all great, right? So pressure transducers, temperature clamps, psychrometers, manometer on the way. These are all the things that will enable people to do, obviously, a whole multitude of tests, including, non-invasive testing procedures in the MeasureQuick app. So, that said, I realize there's not a tremendous amount of crossover to ductless troubleshooting. There's typically already the means to do that with a service checker, or whatever the tool is called, and software use you right in the system integrated. So, from a ductless standpoint, we talk flaring. We do have bending and swaging as well on the same battery platform. So something else to keep in mind when running the line sets, to use sweeping bends anywhere they can. And I think they could really help on the the allotted bends and things of that nature in a design, a build design. I wish I had if this was a little bit longer and more of a visual engagement. I've got some great slides from a study that I had done by an engineering firm showing the behavior of refrigerant, computational fluid dynamics imaging. And it's fascinating to see the characteristics of refrigerant from a velocity and a pressure standpoint when it is flowing through different types of fittings. Not only different types of fittings, but also tubing that has been prepped properly or improperly. So I also had them run tests on tubing with a burr versus not having a burr. Fascinating. So being able to, do those bends with the power bender up above a drop ceiling, reverse bending attachment, being able to do all that really helps. And then being able to, swedge and all that on the same platform is nice. If you have all those tools on site, same batteries, you can really reduce the amount of fittings you're using by half, or braze joints by half. Excuse me. If you're swedging most of your job, there's a point of diminishing returns depending how slow it is. But if you can do it very quickly, under 10 seconds, and repeatably, consistently, you've really got a real power combo there.
Yeah, that's important For a couple of reasons. One of the things about the inverter technology is we have the capability of doing some really long line sets without getting into the commercial VRF stuff, but we've got single zone ducted systems that are capable of 46 feet worth of line set. Well, you're not going to buy a line set that long, so you're going to have to make your own, which, to your point, Andrew, if you're not using couplers, if you're using swedging, you've got one, you don't have to pay for the coupler. Two, you use half as much solder, and that's
Half
big
the oxygen,
deal.
half the acetylene, it's
Yeah,
it's all
half
of
of
it. Yeah,
everything.
it's significant.
And I love the what you talked about, the probes. Terry and I both talk all the time about don't put your gauges on a system, and couple of the reasons: one, it doesn't do you a whole lot of good, which we've talked about on here before, but you extract a couple ounces worth of refrigerant. And now on one of these smaller systems, you've thrown the charge off just by hooking up hoses and introducing POE oil into the system. So I'm excited because I know that I've actually asked you guys in the past if you had any probes, and the answer was always not yet, not yet. So that's cool to know that you guys have those available.
Wanted to get a
Still,
sense,
guys are
guys.
leaning towards
Yeah.
those.
Yeah, they're beautiful. They're really nice fit and finish. They're also, not the only one, but pretty unique in the fact that they have onboard displays as well. So you are not slave to that app if you don't want to be. Sometimes you don't need the whole production, right? You don't need to have the whole big picture. You don't need to have everything connected at once on an app. And like sometimes you just got to get in, get out. You need to check some operational data. Just look at the pro.
About an install, you do a pressure test to check your line set. We ask for 550 psi. I don't need that on my phone. I just need to look at it. But it's cool that it can be on my phone. So if I'm overdoing something else, I can keep an eye on it and watch it.
Absolutely.
And you mentioned manometer. I'm excited about that. And golly, I wish more guys bought and used manometers. As if you're not testing your airflow, I mean, as we move more and more into the ducted system world, which LG has had ducted systems, but there's a huge push for us to grow in that unitary market, and airflow is key. If guys aren't testing their airflow and knowing what their static pressure is, then there's no way to set up the systems properly. There's no way to know if you're going to run it right. I mean, I remember years ago, early in my career, we had a system. I sold it that had ductwork, and we ran through 2 compressors. There's a very reputable brand system that we put in, and in 6 months we toasted 2 compressors until somebody got out there and actually looked at the ductwork and measured it. And shame on us for not doing it the first time, right? But we did figure it out. But that really taught me how important that is. So having the tools that they need available that are quality, it's great. I mean, like Terry said,
I want to go back to a comment. Yeah, I want to go back to a comment. We talked about that, when the battery operated flaring tool and the cost of. I can tell you, I took a strategy with that tool very early on about going to meet with a contractor owner. And Andrew, what I would say is the day I'm going to go see him, the day before, I would call, hey, do me a favor. Can you pull the invoices for oxygen, acetylene, and solder that you bought from last year? Have somebody in the accounting department run a queue and pull those 3 line items. Because when I went to talk about the price, and I wasn't selling vacuum pumps. I'm working for LG Electronics, but I'm trying to get these folks to buy tools that make my installations better. And when I was showing up in that contractor and owner business and say, so did you get those invoices? He goes, man, I had no idea I spent that much money on oxygen, acetylene, and solder last year, right? And then I hit the bombshell. How about all the time that it took for the guy to make all those connections, right? You didn't calculate that either. So when you're talking about the amount of, or the cost of a battery operated flaring tool, that's a different conversation for that group at that point. So if you're listening to this podcast and you're a business owner, there's some food for thought when you start talking about the value of tools for what is clearly the fastest growing technology in our trade. So
Absolutely. And the to what you said, actually what Philip said earlier, about airflow. I think a lot of the perception in the industry is that electrical is typically one of the weakest areas with technicians, and I do agree with that. But I think even more so, I think airflow is one of the most misunderstood elements of this trade, which is unfortunate because it's what we're supposed to be, right, shepherding over, right, people's comfort. So kind of hard to do if you're just, an appliance mechanic. So if you're only able to focus on the box, it's really limiting what you're going to be able to do in this industry. So yeah, definitely, get your airflow right, learn how to do your airflow calculations and measure, every system you go to, really. Airflow is usually going to be the problem.
Oh, absolutely. Well, and if you can't verify that your airflow is right, you can't even start your diagnosis process. Because
Everything else will be wrong. You go and
everything else
some
will be
you,
wrong.
you
Parts
go
will be wrong.
add refrigerant. Yep.
I'm sure it's a TXV because it's always a TXV, and I changed the TXV twice, and it's still wrong. It's like shocker. It's dirty coil.
And Terry, you brought up the situation of pulling those records on oxygen, acetylene, sulfos. That's for the swedging tool. You can, look at the
Apply the same.
the value proposition of that flaring tool. I mean, the cost of going back on a leaking flare after a job or after a piece of equipment's been commissioned, you got to drive out there, you got to take the system offline, you got to pull the refrigerant out. You've now wasted a day.
Yep.
So that's a day that the contractor's paying a guy to go out and do that again. There's the opportunity that's lost that guy could have made money somewhere else. That's gone. I mean, the cost is huge. You could buy 10 flaring tools for the cost of you having to go back on one flare. I mean, potentially, it's just it's insurance. It really is.
Indeed. Well, I know we're running a little short of time, but Andrew, great information today. Great set of tools out of your company. Made me very happy to hear that they take advice from someone who works and is close to what goes on in our business.
Well, I appreciate you guys having me on, and I like talking about NAVAC products and everything. That said, not a salesperson at the company. I'd love to come back on at some point and maybe focus on some of the rabbit holes we just talked about, right? With some of that CFD information on refrigerant velocities and things like that. And there's also some really good tubing. Well, I put together a good training for tubing practices, which you don't see out there today.
Well, Andrew, we're kind of running up on time here. Appreciate you being here. Before we wrap up, any last little nuggets of wisdom that you want to share with us before we go?
You can have 20 years experience, or you can have 1 year experience 20 times over. And I think that's a pretty powerful sentiment when thinking about this industry and committing to learning, a lifelong learning. And there is a big difference. It's not just about how many days and years you put into this trade. If you didn't grow along with it, there's a big difference between having a year of experience 20 years over versus a true 20-year time of experience and growing with the trade.
That's powerful. That's powerful.
Well, I can show you what I'm thinking about there. Yeah, well, I can tell you what I'm thinking about there is when you have this forward thinking, cutting edge technology like this capacity changing inverter driven equipment, it requires some skill sets and some special tools and some processes that may be a little bit different. So that was powerful.
Yeah, 100%. Well, gentlemen, thank you. Everybody, thanks for joining us, and we hope to see you on the next episode of the LG Procast. Bye now.
Until then, see you next time.